Nightline begins now with me, Muhammed, Ahmad, Hamdan. News making the headlines. Malaysia's economy remains resilient, posting strong 5.2% growth in the third quarter of 2025. And government directs MCMC to probe telcos over scam protection charges. Good morning. Malaysia's economy expanded 5.2% in the third quarter of this year compared to 4.4% in the previous quarter. According to Chief Statistician Dato' Sri Muhammad Uzir Mahidin, growth was driven by strong domestic demand and higher export performance.
Peningkatan ini didorong oleh perbelanjaan isi rumah yang terus mampan dengan pasaran pekerja yang positif, aktiviti pelaburan yang stabil serta pertumbuhan ekspor yang berterusan disokong oleh sektor E&E.
He said this during the third quarter economic performance media conference on Friday. The 5.2% growth in gross domestic product, or GDP, is also consistent with the initial projection released earlier by the Department of Statistics Malaysia. The services sector grew 5%, manufacturing expanded 4.1%, while the construction sector strengthened to 11.8%. The mining and quarrying sector also rebounded sharply to 9.7% after recording contractions for 4 consecutive quarters. While Malaysia is poised to achieve its year-end growth trajectory, the outlook for 2026 is likely to face greater pressure amid emerging external risks. According to Bank Muamalat Chief Economist Muhammad Afzanizam Abdul Rashid, next year's outlook could be tempered by rising global uncertainties.
The main challenge, obviously, is the concerns over the tariff imports in the US, where next year is expected to be full-blown in terms of the implementations. Thereby, there would be some impact or repercussions from the demand from abroad, especially in the US, given that the higher tariff rates will be charged for certain products for our export markets.
Despite this, Afzanizam noted that some sectors, including semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, may be partly shielded due to tariff exemptions. However, he warned that the overall impact of US tariffs could slow global growth momentum in 2026, raising downside risks for Malaysia. As for 2025, Bank Negara Malaysia has maintained its GDP projection of between 4% and 4.8%. Its Governor, Dato' Sri Abdul Rashid Ghaffur, said this is due to solid domestic demand and higher net exporters, which continue to support the economy.
Please keep your questions.
During Friday's briefing on third quarter GDP, Abdul Rashid said the expectations for 2025 were driven by resilient domestic demand, steady investment inflows and a firmer ringgit.
We do have strong assessment or projection that we might end up in the upper end of this range, between 4 to 4.8. We might not be within that range at the upper end, or if things get better, if the upside risks materialize, we may even go beyond that.
According to the central bank, household spending remains supported by steady employment and rising wages, while income support measures continue to underpin consumption. Investment is expected to stay firm, backed by major infrastructure works, approved private sector projects, and the implementation of national master plans. The central bank cautioned that global headwinds may temper export performance. Nonetheless, the continued appetite for electrical and electronic products, stronger inbound tourism, and a revival in mining-related exports are expected to sustain overall growth. On the ringgit, Abdul Rashid said the local currency strengthened in the third quarter on the back of external monetary shifts and resilient national fundamentals. The currency's nominal effective exchange rate rose 0.8%, lifting year-to-date gains to 5.3% as of November 12. Meanwhile, Abdul Rashid said the data center industry is the largest contributor of foreign investment, in line with the 5.2% GDP in the third quarter of this year. He added that the sector is increasingly contributing to the nation's export of services.
Between January to September this year, based on Bank Negara Malaysia's internal cash BOP data, data center exports of services amounted to 10.7 billion ringgit.
This amount is a significant increase from the 1.2 billion ringgit recorded last year, driven by global demand for artificial intelligence technologies, cloud computing and digital infrastructure, which requires high-capacity data centers. Abdul Rashid noted the priority now is to strengthen the supporting industry network so that economic benefits can be maximized. He also stressed that talent development, energy efficiency and sustainability policies need to be strengthened to ensure the data center industry continues to be competitive. On another note, the central bank said the temporary 10% cap on health insurance premium adjustments is working effectively to manage medical inflation.
Untuk jangka masa yang temporary ini, kita telah perkenalkan the 10% limit in terms of repricing. And we have seen that working very well. And this 10% repricing adjustment ni capture about 90% of the insurance premium.
The governor said the central bank's longer-term focus remains on implementing the Reset initiative, which aims to revamp the medical and health takaful product, enhance price transparency, strengthen digital health systems, expand cost-effective treatment options, and transform payment mechanisms. The federal government will begin its first round of negotiations with the Sabah state government on the 40% revenue entitlement in Kota Kinabalu next Monday. Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Minister Dato' Armizan Muhammad Ali said this was decided at a cabinet meeting chaired by Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim earlier on Friday, which confirmed that the talks will proceed without delay, despite Sabah preparing for its state election later this month.
Kita tahu di Sabah sedang sekarang Ketua Menteri pun caretaker, jadi dimulakan segera proses perbincangan itu di antara peringkat pegawai Kerajaan Persekutuan dan juga Kerajaan Sabah.
Armizan said the negotiations reflect the federal government's commitment to implementing the Kota Kinabalu High Court's decision and fulfilling its obligations. He added that the meeting will be conducted at an official level, with the federal delegation led by Treasury Secretary-General Datuk Johan Mahmud Merican and the Sabah delegation led by State Secretary Datuk Seri Safar Untung. Armizan has also been appointed by the Cabinet to represent Sabah on the Technical Committee of the MA63 Implementation Action Council. He replaces Datuk Iwan Benedict, who resigned as Entrepreneur Development and Cooperatives Minister last Monday. Meanwhile, the Attorney General's Chambers has reiterated that the federal government is appealing only certain aspects of the grounds of judgment and not the Kota Kinabalu High Court's ruling on Sabah's 40% special revenue entitlement. In a statement, the AG's Chambers confirmed that it had filed a partial appeal on Thursday, focused solely on addressing several errors in the court's written grounds. These include findings alleging that the federal and state governments had abused their powers and breached their constitutional duties. The AG's Chambers added the federal government will continue to proceed immediately with negotiations with the Sabah state government regarding the special grant. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim held a discussion with United States President Donald Trump to address the latest developments along the Cambodia-Thailand border. In a Facebook post, Anwar said he conveyed to Trump during a phone call on Friday evening that both Cambodia and Thailand are committed to pursuing dialogue and diplomatic efforts as the primary means of resolving tensions in the area. He added that both countries have withdrawn their military deployments from the border in line with the approach agreed upon under the Kuala Lumpur Peace Agreement framework. Anwar also welcomed Trump's active engagement on the issue, noting that the US president had reached out directly to the prime ministers of Cambodia and Thailand. Such efforts, he said, would help ensure that any remaining differences are managed responsibly to safeguard regional stability and harmony. Earlier, the Prime Minister has commended Cambodia for its mature approach in pursuing a peaceful resolution to its border dispute with neighboring Thailand. Anwar conveyed this during a phone call on Friday with Cambodian counterpart Hun Mane. During the discussion, Anwar praised Phnom Penh for prioritizing resolution through healthy dialogue and negotiations. He said Malaysia supports Cambodia's position in using previously agreed channels and views the Kuala Lumpur Peace Accord as a foundation for ending the long-standing dispute. The peace deal was signed by Hun Mane and Thai Prime Minister Anutin Chanvirakul, witnessed by Anwar and US President Donald Trump on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit on October 26th. Under the agreement, both countries agreed to a ceasefire. As a nation firmly committed to regional security, Anwar affirmed that Malaysia will continue to play a fair and responsible role as a facilitator, particularly in helping both countries achieve a lasting resolution and contributing to regional stability. The Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission has been instructed to probe several telecommunications companies for charging users 10 ringgit per month for scam protection services. Communications Minister Datuk Fahmi Fadil said the move is intended to allow authorities to determine whether the charges are fair and justified.
Saya akan minta supaya MCMC mengenal pasti syarikat perkhidmatan telekomunikasi tersebut mendapatkan penjelasan dan meneliti aspek ini sama ada wajar ataupun tidak.
Fahmi said this at a post-cabinet media briefing in Putrajaya on Friday. He was commenting on media reports that certain telcos are charging fees for scam protection services. Consumer groups and computer experts have described the service as unjustified, saying it conflicts with the basic responsibility of telcos to ensure the safety of their users. And welcoming MCMC's investigation into the paid scam prevention services introduced by several telcos, the Federation of Malaysian Consumers Associations, FOMCA, described the move as both timely and necessary. Its Vice President, Dr. Indrani Turaisingam, emphasized that these companies should not be charging users extra fees for anti-scam protection.
Telcos are already charging for network access, and security should naturally be part of that service. So when people have to pay RM 10 ringgit a month just to feel safe, I think it risks turning protection into a profit center instead of a responsibility. No one should be forced to choose between affordability and safety.
Indrani also warned that paid protection could leave lower income groups who are most vulnerable to scams even less protected, and urged regulators to enforce minimum safety standards for all users. A technical investigation is underway to determine the root cause of water leakage at Kuala Lumpur International Airport KLIA Terminal 1's departure hall, which occurred during a heavy downpour on Friday. Malaysia Airports Holdings Berhad, MAHB, confirmed that no flights were disrupted as a result of the incident. In a statement, the airport operator said core operations, including passenger processing, terminal movement and the baggage handling system, remained unaffected. It also said that containment, cleanup and restoration work were carried out promptly, with water in the affected sections cleared within 90 minutes. Check-in counters K and L were also reopened after critical systems were inspected and deemed safe, while some support functions remain under close monitoring. MAHB assured that any necessary corrective and preventive measures will be implemented to strengthen KLIA's resilience against similar incidents. Earlier, several video clips showing water leaks at the Terminal 1 departure hall during a thunderstorm were widely circulated online, sparking concerns among netizens. Net inflows of foreign direct investment or FDI into Malaysia rose sharply to 8.5 billion ringgit in the third quarter of this year, compared with just 1.6 billion ringgit recorded in the previous quarter. According to the Department of Statistics Malaysia, most of the inflows were driven by the services sector, particularly information and communications, and financial activities linked to data center operations. Singapore, China and Japan also remain the country's leading sources of FDI. Meanwhile, direct investment abroad registered a net outflow of 1.7 billion ringgit due to equity liquidation and reinvested earnings. The US and South Korea on Friday unveiled a new trade agreement featuring a $150 billion Korean investment in the American shipbuilding industry, plus another $200 billion for wider industrial sectors. South Korea's Industry Minister Kim Jung-kwon and US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick signed a 27-point non-binding memorandum of understanding outlining strategic investments. It sets a timeline for projects to be chosen by the US president, with Seoul required to transfer funds within 45 days of each decision. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung said the agreement strengthens cooperation in shipbuilding, AI and nuclear industries, while the White House confirmed US approval for Seoul to build nuclear-powered submarines and work together on securing fuel supplies. Police bust international drug syndicate. This and more after this breather.
Siapa yang betul-betul gegarkan social media anda? Jom kita cari di obrolan paling viral online.
Saat yang dinantikan telah tiba. Smart cooker pertama dari Lenona, Rose Lux Smart Cooker. Corak bunga mawar klasik yang memukau. Pilihan utama setiap wanita moden. Perlu dalam 5 liter, lapisan anti lekat premium. Nantikan pelancarannya. Layari www.lenona.com.my. Lenona, sentuhan elegan cita rasa anda.
Back on Nightline, Bukit Aman has foiled an international drug syndicate's attempt to use Malaysia as a transit point before smuggling the drugs to the Australian market. The operation led to the seizure of shabu worth 1.44 million ringgit hidden inside a container at Port Klang, Selangor. Bukit Aman Narcotics Crime Investigation Department Director Dr. Hussein Omar Khan said the syndicate is believed to have brought the drugs from a Middle Eastern country last Friday. The container was declared as carrying 22 pallets of marble slabs.
Pemeriksaan dilakukan ini ke atas kontainer telah menemui satu ruang khas di bahagian luar atas kontainer yang mempunyai kesan kimpalan. Hasil pemeriksaan lanjut di bahagian dalam ruangan khas ini menjumpai 136 bungkusan plastik lusinar yang mengandungi serbuk ataupun ketulan kristal disyaki dadah jenis methamphetamine.
He added that the operation was conducted following intelligence sharing through the Joint Task Force Tiger in collaboration with the Australian Federal Police. No local company was found to be involved in the shipment, as the container was not scheduled to leave Port Klang for any domestic destination. Authorities are currently identifying the network of syndicates believed to be using cargo containers to smuggle drugs. The case is being investigated under the Dangerous Drugs Act. In Perlis, a new tactic by syndicates to hide drugs in mangrove trees in swamp areas was uncovered when the State Customs Department seized more than 41 kilograms of ganja at a recent raid. During the operation in Kampung Pulau Ketam, Kuala Perlis, enforcement officers found 51 compressed blocks of cannabis estimated to be worth 378,000 ringgit. Apart from evading detection by authorities, the drugs were placed in the mangrove trees to prevent them from being washed away by the tide. In a separate raid on October 28th, another 50 kilograms of ganja were discovered abandoned at an illegal jetty. Both cases are believed to involve the same modus operandi, where the syndicate leaves sacks of drugs at hidden locations to be collected later by other individuals. So far this year, Perlis Customs has recorded 18 drug seizure cases valued at more than 24 million ringgit. Selangor police have arrested 3 people in connection with a shooting at a petrol station in Bukit Tinggi in Klang last week. State Police Chief Dato' Shazli Kahar said the suspects, aged between 19 and 35, were arrested around the Klang area and have been remanded until November 17th. Responding to claims that the incident may be linked to secret society activity, Shazli stressed that investigations are being carried out from all angles, including looking into the victim's background. He added that the victim, identified as a local unemployed man, died after being struck by several gunshots. Police had previously said that in the incident, which occurred at about 11 p.m, an individual had fired several shots, fatally striking the victim in a car. Landslide in Indonesia's Java Island leaves 2 dead. The details when Nightline returns.
Wahai pujangga cinta, biar membelai indah, teladani kalbuku, jujurlah pada hatimu, ada barengan cinta, perbedaan aku dan engkau, biar menjadi baik dalam puisi, dalam puisi.
3 tahun lalu menjadi detik pilu buat Fazilah apabila anaknya Nur Aira Shazira, 12 tahun, disahkan menghidap penyakit spina bifida.
Dia punya kekuatan tu dia tak boleh nak tampung berat badan dia. Sebab dia punya kekuatan daripada buku lali dia langsung tak ada. Dia seolah-olah macam tak terima diri dia macam tu. Dia tak nak bergaul dengan orang, bawa diri dia sendiri.
Halo, my name is Leah Prinsky. Saya berwatak sebagai cinta.
Halo, saya Alputra Saira. Saya memainkan watak Rangga.
Halo, saya Riri Riza.
Hai, saya Mira Lesmana.
Jangan lupa nonton film Rangga dan Cinta sekarang. Beli tiketnya sekarang.
Dapatkan tiketnya sekarang.
Onto the foreign front, at least 2 people were killed and 21 others remain unaccounted for following a landslide in Indonesia on Thursday. Officials said heavy rains triggered the landslide at around 8 p.m. local time, striking dozens of houses across 3 villages in the Cilacap district, Central Java province. By Friday morning, rescue teams had evacuated 23 people, 3 of whom sustained minor injuries. Although unstable terrain continues to pose challenges, search and rescue teams pressed on, deploying heavy machinery to speed up evacuation efforts. The National Disaster Management Authority has urged residents and rescue personnel to remain vigilant against secondary landslides as light to moderate rainfall is forecast in Majenang district from Friday through Sunday. At least 5 Chinese tourists were killed and 8 others injured after their rented minibus plunged into a shallow ravine on the Indonesian resort island of Bali on Friday. Police said the 13 Chinese nationals were heading to Buletin in northern Bali from the city of Denpasar when the accident occurred. The The driver is believed to have lost control of the vehicle and swerved it to the left to crash into a tree in an attempt to avoid colliding with another car. The minibus, however, was thrown off the road and plunged into the ravine. The victims were taken to the nearest hospital, where 5 of them died, while the driver sustained injuries. The exact cause of the accident is still under investigation. The US has called on the United Nations Security Council to back its draft resolution supporting President Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan, warning that failure to do so could result in grave consequences for Palestinians.
I shall put the draft resolution.
The draft text would establish a 2-year mandate until the end of 2027 for a transitional governance body in Gaza called the Board of Peace, which Trump would chair. It also calls for member states to form a temporary international stabilization force to disarm non-state armed groups, protect civilians, and secure humanitarian corridors. In a shift from earlier drafts, the latest version references a possible future Palestinian state, saying conditions may be in place for a credible pathway to self-determination depending on reforms by the Palestinian Authority. But despite broad support for a Board of Peace, serious questions remain, including the lack of any oversight mechanism, the PA's future role, and the vague details surrounding the Stabilization Force's mandate. On to sports now, badminton and the 2025 Japan Masters. Malaysia's hopes of securing the Super 500 title remain alive, with 2 of 5 national representatives marching into the semi-finals on Friday. Women's doubles aces Pearly Tan and M. Tina stayed on track for their 7th final of the season after outclassing Taiwan's Su Yin Hui, Lin Jin Yun 21-13, 21-17 in just 30 minutes. The world number 1 duo, chasing their 3rd World Tour title of the season, will face Japan's Mayu Matsumoto and Yuki Fukushima next. In men's doubles, independent duo Go Zifei and Nur Izzuddin Rumsani continued their push for a World Tour finals berth, defeating Taiwan's world number 12 Li Zhehui and Yang Po Xuan 21-16, 10-21, 21-16 in 46 minutes. Zifei Izzuddin now prepare for a tough semi-final against Japan's rapidly rising world number 29 Hiroki Midorikawa and Kyuhei Yamashita, a pair coached by Malaysian Lee Wanhua. Moving on to esports, MPL Malaysia's Season 16, 3-time reigning champions Selangor Red Giants OG Esports or SRG.OG had no trouble booking their place in the upper bracket final, sweeping Monster Vicious MV 3-0 on Friday. SRG.org was simply a cut above, showcasing crisp, confident gameplay driven by standout performances from Kram and Yums as they needed only 12 minutes to secure the opening game. MV mounted a stronger challenge in Game 2, but SRG.org's discipline and clean rotations, highlighted by Stormy's commanding control of Jusin, kept them firmly in charge, closing it out in 15 minutes for a 2-0 lead. Their dominance continued in Game 3 with Hakullah Ahmad Syarul Zaman or Sekis shining on joy, helping SRG.org wrap up the sweep in 16 minutes. The victory places SRG.org just one step away from confirming their spot at the M7 World Championship 2026. Well, that wraps up this edition of Nightline. We leave you with visuals of a Beijing restaurant offering a unique time travel experience to ancient China. With that, I'm Muhammed, Ahmad Hamdan. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend.